first off, the configuration that you need to apply the test distribution plugin. So this assumes you're already on Gradle 6, but as I will show later, it also works on Gradle 5. You would, in a Gradle 6 build, have the Gradle Enterprise plugin as a settings plugin, and then also configured your Gradle Enterprise server in the settings script here. And then in your build script, you would apply the test distribution plugin, as Benedict has shown in the first build. And of course, version 1.0 is not yet released, but we are still working on that and will do so soon. In the test task, you have then to use the distribution extension of the task and then enable test distribution basically. And you have to use the JNet platform for that to work. There are a few configuration options for the test distribution plugin. So first off, you have to opt in test distribution. As Benedict said, that's because you first need to make sure that your tests are actually self-contained. So anything that you need to start up before your tests are running, you have to do inside your test execution kind of. So there are like lifecycle listeners for JUnit that will help you do that. If you currently use a Gradle task, for example, to start a server or tear it down afterwards, that will not work for distributed execution. Then you have the possibility to restrict the number of local and remote executors. So by default, max local executors is equal to the max parallel forks count that I've shown earlier. So if you, for example, only want to use remote executors, you can set it to 0. And the same holds true for the remote executor setting. By default, it's unrestricted. So it's only restricted by the number of agents that are connected to Gradle Enterprise. If you know you don't have to use more than 10, for example, you could set it like this. And then last but not least, there's the requirements. So that allows you to put in any kind of string values that you then match against the agent's capabilities. And OS and JDK are automatically detected. You can add additional ones to the agents, as I will show later. A word about the Java runtime used on the agents. So for each test task, we detect the major version of the JDK that this test task would usually be executed with. So which JDK would be used to fork and run the tests on. And we're going to add that as an implicit agent requirement. So the agent does have to have the same major version of Java installed, so you can run the tests on that. Yeah, and only matching agents will thus be matched and are eligible then for test execution. You can, of course, have multiple JDKs installed on the agents, and different test tasks can use different JDKs, and those would all match then to those agents with those multiple JDKs. There are a few prerequisites for using the test distribution plugin in your Gradle builds. So it requires Gradle 5.4 or above. And of course, it requires Gradle Enterprise. 2020.2 will be the version that's released in April, so next month. Tests running on the JNet platform are supported. So we support JNet Jupyter, which is the new testing framework introduced with JNet 5, but also JNet 3 and JNet 4 tests. They are still supported, and you just have to add the JNet Vintage engine to your test runtime class path. And the same holds true for frameworks like Spock that technically basically have a JNet 4 runner that can execute these tests on JNet 4 and then by the Vintage engine also on the JNet platform. And in addition to that, any test framework that already has a JNet platform engine is supported by this approach. A direct consequence of using JNet platform is it requires Java 8. So we now require Java 8 test runtime for using test distribution. Again, a small reminder here, I'm talking about Gradle a lot here, but we will have maven support, just not in the initial release. It will come in the next release then.